In the dimly lit war room at Wolf's Lair on the 19th of August, 1944, General Alfred Jodl smiled over the intelligence reports, convinced that the Allies had overextended their logistics. With supply lines stretching 400 miles from the Normandy beaches, he declared, "No army, not even America's, can sustain this mad advance." The Germans, masters of Blitzkrieg, knew the tyranny of logistics all too well. It had doomed their campaigns in Russia. But 125 miles away, 5,958 trucks were rolling eastward, headlights blazing in defiance of blackout rules, challenging every principle of warfare. The Red Ball Express, an unprecedented logistical marvel, was about to shatter every German assumption. Within 72 hours, Patton's tanks would smash through defenses at the Seine. A week later, Paris would be liberated, and within a month, Allied forces would stand at the German border. The drivers, mostly African-American soldiers in a segregated U.S. Army, transformed a one-way highway into a river of supplies, drowning German hopes in a flood of fuel and resolve. This is the story of how 23,000 truck drivers, defying prejudice and exhaustion, rewrote the rules of war. They didn't just deliver cargo, they carried hope, shattered expectations, and proved that in modern warfare, trucks could defeat tanks. Join us to explore the Red Ball Express, the logistical weapon that changed history. Part 1. The German Miscalculation. In the dim, map-strewn war room of Hitler's Wolf's Lair in East Prussia, the 19th of August 1944, Generaloberst Alfred Jodl stood over a sprawl of intelligence reports, his brow furrowed with the weight of inevitability. The air was thick with the scent of ink, stale coffee, and the nervous energy of Wehrmacht officers who believed they held the upper hand. Jodl's staff had meticulously calculated the mathematics of Allied supply lines, stretching 400 miles from the Normandy beaches to General George S. Patton's spearheading Third Army. The conclusion seemed irrefutable. The Americans had outrun their logistics. Patton's tanks, they reasoned, would grind to a halt within days, perhaps hours, starved of the 150,000 gallons of fuel an armored division consumed daily. No army, not even one backed by American industry, could sustain such a reckless advance across war-torn France. The Wehrmacht, masters of Blitzkrieg, knew the tyranny of supply lines all too well. Their own campaigns in Russia had crumbled not under enemy fire, but under the crushing reality of overstretched logistics trucks breaking down on muddy roads, horse-drawn wagons lagging behind panzer spearheads, supplies piling up hundreds of miles from the front. Jodl, a man steeped in Prussian military tradition, saw history repeating itself. The Americans faced the same logistical impossibility we faced, General der Panzertruppe Heinrich von Lüttwitz had written in July. Their mechanical advantage becomes a disadvantage. History teaches us what comes next: paralysis. The Wolf's Lair buzzed with a quiet arrogance, the kind born of decades of German military supremacy. Officers whispered of holding the Seine until winter, regrouping for a counter-offensive. Jodl, his uniform crisp despite the late hour, traced the Allied advance on a map, his finger pausing at the 400-mile mark. A Sherman tank burned half a gallon per mile on roads, far worse cross-country. Patton's 12 divisions demanded 12,000 tons of supplies daily, transported over damaged roads the Germans had systematically destroyed in retreat. Physical laws cannot be violated. General Major Siegfried Westphal declared, "Not even by American industry." The Wehrmacht's confidence was rooted in experience, their own failures a grim textbook. Yet, 125 miles away, a rumble was growing. 5,958 trucks rolling eastward in an endless convoy, headlights blazing in defiance of blackout doctrine. The Red Ball Express, a logistical juggernaut unimaginable to German military science, was about to rewrite the rules of warfare. Within 72 hours, Patton's tanks would smash through German lines at the Seine. Within a week, Paris would be free. Within a month, the Allies would stand at Germany's border. The Wehrmacht's finest minds, cloistered in their fortress of hubris, were about to learn a lesson in American audacity. Delivered by 23,000 truck drivers who turned a one-way highway into a river of supplies, drowning German hopes in a flood of fuel, ammunition, and resolve. Part 2. The Birth of the Red Ball Express. On the 25th of August 1944, in a requisitioned French chateau near Lisieux, Lieutenant Colonel WorldWarII stood before a room of skeptical officers, their faces etched with doubt and exhaustion. The chandelier above flickered, casting shadows over maps and cigarette smoke as the reality of Patton's Third Army loomed large. It was consuming supplies faster than any force in history, advancing at speeds that shattered logistical planning. Railways lay in ruins, traditional convoys couldn't keep pace, and depots were overwhelmed. The Americans were 400 miles from their Normandy supply bases, and the math was brutal. An infantry division needed 700 tons daily, an armored division 1,000. Patton's 12 divisions demanded 12,000 tons every 24 hours, transported over roads reduced to rubble by retreating Germans. The officers' murmurs grew sharp. Some called it madness to push further. Ayers, a wiry logistics officer with a reputation for blunt pragmatism, silenced the room. "Gentlemen," he declared, "we're creating a one-way highway from Cherbourg to the front. Every truck runs 20 hours a day, no stops except for gas or breakdowns. We'll deliver 12,500 tons daily, minimum." The plan was audacious, named after railway slang for priority freight trains, the Red Ball Express. It would operate with absolute urgency, no delays, no exceptions, defying every rule in the military logistics handbook. Ayer's vision was as much a rebellion as it was a strategy. He proposed 2 parallel highways, one for loaded trucks racing east, another for empties returning west, operating 24 hours with headlights blazing, abandoning blackout protocols. Convoys would maintain 35 miles per hour, spaced 5 minutes apart, with mobile maintenance units every 50 miles and MP checkpoints to clear slow vehicles. Colonel Charles O. Thrasher, overseeing the advanced section of the communication zone, shook his head. "We need 140 truck companies, 5,958 vehicles at 90% availability," he said. "That's impossible by any textbook." Yet Ayer's resolve was unshakable, his voice carrying the grit of a man who'd seen supply failures cripple armies. He drew inspiration from America's railroads, where Red Ball freight trains roared through the night, unstoppable. The name wasn't just logistics, it was a promise of momentum, a symbol of American ingenuity. Officers exchanged glances, torn between disbelief and the faint hope that this gamble could work. Outside, French villagers watched as trucks began to gather, their engines a low growl against the pastoral quiet. The Red Ball Express was born in that chateau, not from meticulous planning, but from necessity and defiance. A logistics miracle that would keep Patton's tanks rolling and prove that desperation, paired with American industrial might, could rewrite the rules of war. Part 3. The Mechanics of the Impossible. Within 36 hours of its conception, the Red Ball Express roared to life on the 26th of August 1944 as drivers from the 3,916th Quartermaster Truck Company climbed into their GMC CCKW 2.5-ton trucks, affectionately dubbed the Deuce and a Half, loaded with 105mm artillery shells destined for Patton's guns. At Melun, 300 miles east, the operation's technical blueprint was a masterpiece of defiance. 2 parallel one-way highways slicing through liberated France, one artery pulsing with loaded trucks surging forward, the other carrying empties back for reloads. 24-hour operations shattered the night with blazing headlights, a bold rejection of blackout discipline that lit up the countryside like a defiant beacon. No stops were tolerated except for fuel or mechanical emergencies. Convoys rolled at a relentless 35 miles per hour average, spaced at 5-minute intervals to maintain the flow. Mobile maintenance units dotted the route every 50 miles, ready to pounce on breakdowns. While MP checkpoints enforced the iron rule, any vehicle dipping below 25 miles per hour was yanked off the line like a weak link in a chain. The numbers were staggering. 140 truck companies, 5,958 vehicles operating at 90% availability, churning out 12,500 tons of supplies every 24 hours. This wasn't logistics as the world knew it. It was a mechanical symphony orchestrated on the fly, where American engineers turned chaos into precision. The ingenuity behind it all pulsed with the heartbeat of improvisation, as if the spirit of Yankee tinkerers from the factories of Detroit had been transplanted to French soil. Engineers rigged mobile cranes for 45-minute engine swaps, developed triage systems to fix breakdowns in 15 minutes or shove them into ditches, and even commandeered local French buses to shuttle personnel, freeing up trucks for cargo. Drivers, thrust into this whirlwind, became inventors themselves, painting route markers on the fly, forging alternate paths through fields when roads clogged, and building bypasses from bombed rubble, their hands calloused from turning wrenches under starlit skies. French civilians, emerging from years of occupation's grim austerity, watched in wide-eyed wonder as the endless convoys thundered past their villages. Children waved from roadside hedges, elders whispered of miracles as the trucks, slogans like Patton's Blood Bank and Hitler, "Here we come," scrawled on their sides, symbolized an abundance that mocked German scarcity. Where the Wehrmacht had stripped the land bare, these Americans rolled in with a surplus that spilled over, sharing rations and smiles, igniting sparks of hope in a people starved of both. The Red Ball wasn't just moving supplies, it was a rolling testament to American excess, turning the impossible into an unstoppable force that left the French breathless and the Germans bewildered. The heart of the Red Ball Express beat in the cabs of those deuce-and-a-half trucks, where 23,000 drivers, 75% of them African-American soldiers in a segregated U.S. Army, transformed a logistics nightmare into a triumph of human will. These men, who back home couldn't share a restaurant counter or bus seat with white Americans, now held the lifeline for Patton's celebrated Third Army, ensuring the tanks never thirsted for fuel and the guns never fell silent. They climbed into their rigs on the 26th of August, 1944, engines rumbling like a promise of liberation, and within hours, a unique culture emerged from the dust and diesel fumes. Slogans splashed across truck hoods captured their defiant spirit. Patton's Blood Bank, Hitler, "Here we come," Detroit to Berlin Express. They forged their own rules of the road. Slower vehicles pulled off immediately. Mechanical failures were shoved into ditches without ceremony. And any truck lagging below 20 miles per hour was deemed a blockade, cleared like an enemy obstacle. These drivers operated in a world of relentless motion, their segregated units a microcosm of America's contradictions, yet their performance was seamless, proving capability knew no color line. Amid the grind, personal stories wove through the convoy like threads of quiet heroism, fueling morale in the face of exhaustion and danger. Take Private James Wilkins, a sharecropper's son from Alabama who drove with a photo of his family tucked in his dashboard, whispering prayers over potholed roads as he hauled ammunition through the night, motivated not just by duty, but by the knowledge that every mile chipped away at Hitler's racial myths. Interactions with French locals added layers of humanity. At brief fuel stops, drivers like Wilkins shared sea rations and chocolate with wide-eyed children, bridging cultural divides with gestures of kindness that contrasted sharply with the Germans' harsh occupation. Elderly villagers, remembering the invaders' plundering, now cheered the convoys, offering fresh bread or directions, their gratitude a balm for the driver's own experiences of discrimination. Yet, this endless parade of trucks became an unwitting weapon of psychological warfare against the Wehrmacht. German soldiers, hunkered in foxholes, heard the unceasing roar of engines through the darkness, a symphony of American abundance that eroded their resolve. Intercepted reports spoke of troops demoralized by the ghost convoys, the sound alone whispering of inevitable defeat, as if the trucks carried not just supplies, but the weight of an unstoppable industrial giant. These unsung heroes, African-American drivers foremost, didn't just deliver cargo, they hauled hope across France, their resilience a silent rebuke to segregation and supremacy alike. Part 5. German Bewilderment. By the 28th of August, 1944, German reconnaissance units were sending frantic reports that defied comprehension. Continuous vehicle column, headlights visible for 20 kilometers. No spacing, no blackout discipline. Estimate 1,000 vehicles per hour. Americans have abandoned all military precaution. This spectacle violated every tenet of German military doctrine, where concealment was sacred and exposing convoys to air or artillery strikes was suicidal. Yet the Red Ball Express thundered on, unconcerned. its trucks passing at 30-second intervals day and night. General Lieutenant Edgar Feutinger, commanding the 21st Panzer Division, observed from hidden positions on August 30, his binoculars revealing a supply system beyond German grasp. "It's not military science," he reported to Army Group B headquarters with rising alarm. "It's mass production applied to warfare." The Wehrmacht's rigid mindset, forged in the academies of Potsdam and honed on the Eastern Front, struggled to process this chaos. Officers like Feutinger, products of a tradition emphasizing precision and economy, scribbled notes in disbelief where Germans conserved vehicles and followed strict procedures. Americans embraced volume and improvisation, assuming 20% mechanical failures and overwhelming them with redundancy. The bewilderment deepened as intercepted data poured in. In its first week, the Red Ball delivered 89,939 tons, averaging 12,848 tons daily over 686-mile round trips, with 5,958 trucks rotating 1.5 times a day, guzzling 300,000 gallons of fuel for the operation alone. German logistics specialists dismissed these figures as propaganda, their calculations rooted in a world of horse-drawn wagons that comprised 80% of their transport. But the reality accelerated. Convoys departing every 5 minutes, each with 67 vehicles, hauling 5 to 7 tons, covering 350 miles in 14 hours. Attempts to rationalize it faltered. Staff meetings in dimly lit bunkers turned tense, officers pacing under the weight of dawning despair. "We face not a superior army, but a superior civilization," Field Marshal Walter Model lamented, his voice echoing the crumbling confidence of a once unassailable force. They had prepared for tactical battles, not this industrial torrent that made mockery of their scarcity-driven strategies. Whispers of envy mixed with fear. How could these Americans waste resources so prodigiously, abandoning trucks rather than repairing them, while German divisions begged for parts? The growing despair seeped into the ranks, officers staring at maps as if willing the convoys to halt, realizing that American abundance wasn't just logistical, it was a cultural force, eroding the Wehrmacht's faith in their own doctrines, one relentless mile at a time. Part 6. Fueling the Advance, Operation Pluto and Beyond. The Red Ball Express's most audacious feat lay in its mastery of fuel, a commodity that had crippled German offensives time and again, consuming 300,000 gallons daily just to keep its own trucks rolling, more than many Wehrmacht armies received for all operations. Yet shortages never materialized, thanks to a web of innovations that turned scarcity into surplus. Forward fuel dumps sprouted every 25 miles along the route, tanker trucks forming parallel convoys to ensure no vehicle waited more than 10 minutes for refueling. This wasn't mere planning, it was a parallel marvel. Operation Pluto pipelines under the ocean, laying fuel lines across the English Channel, undetected by German intelligence. By September 1944, petroleum flowed underwater like an invisible river, feeding the beast of American mechanization. General Lieutenant Walter Warlimont, poring over aerial reconnaissance photos, could scarcely believe it. The Americans have fuel dumps larger than our entire strategic reserves. They burn more gasoline moving gasoline than we allocate to entire panzer divisions. This isn't war as we understand it. It's industrial overflow. The contrast was stark. While German divisions rationed every drop, their trucks sputtering on synthetic fuels, the Red Ball's endless supply symbolized Allied dominance, a liquid lifeline that kept Patton's tanks surging forward at speeds shattering defensive plans. American engineers, embodying the can-do spirit of a nation raised on assembly lines and innovation, orchestrated this fuel symphony with breathtaking ingenuity. They improvised pumping stations from captured German equipment, rigged mobile refineries to process low-grade fuel on the fly, and even devised quick-connect hoses that slashed refueling times in half, their grease-streaked faces lit by the glow of headlights as they worked through rain-soaked nights. This resourcefulness stood in sharp relief against German shortages, where fuel crises had doomed the Eastern Front, leaving panzers as static pillboxes. For the French, witnessing tanker trucks dispense gallons like water from a well, it evoked tales of abundance from pre-war folklore, igniting whispers of liberation's promise. Symbolically, this endless fuel became a beacon of hope, eroding enemy morale as German soldiers, huddled in fuel-starved outposts, heard the ceaseless rumble of well-fed engines. It wasn't just logistics, it was a psychological hammer, pounding home the reality that America's industrial heart pumped stronger than any European counterpart, turning the tide of war 1 gallon at a time and proving that in the mechanized age, fuel was the true kingmaker. Part 7. Breaking the Rules, American Ingenuity. The Red Ball Express thrived on a whirlwind of innovations that sprouted hourly. As drivers and mechanics tackled obstacles German military science deemed insurmountable, turning potential disasters into seamless triumphs. When trucks broke down, some 1,800 daily mobile maintenance units descended like pit crews at a racetrack, implementing a ruthless triage system, 15 minutes to repair or push the wreck into a ditch. Engines were swapped in 45 minutes with mobile cranes, parts cannibalized from irreparable vehicles without a second thought. Congested routes? Drivers blazed alternate paths through fields and villages, commandeering French buses to ferry personnel and liberate trucks for cargo duty. Captured German vehicles were hastily repainted olive, drab, and thrust into service, their swastikas buried under layers of American grit. Destroyed bridges posed no barrier. At Monte, where German engineers had calculated a 6-week rebuild, American sappers erected a temporary span in 14 hours. While convoys detoured a mere 8 miles on bulldozed bypasses fashioned from bombed rubble. This wasn't orderly engineering, it was raw, adaptive genius, violating every German principle of careful planning and scheduled maintenance, yet accelerating the operation rather than dooming it. The chaos of these improvisations pulsed with a vibrant energy, mechanics shouting over clanging tools in the dead of night, their flashlights dancing like fireflies as they jury-rigged solutions from scrap and sheer willpower. Drivers formed tight-knit bonds amid the mayhem, sharing Benzedrine tablets and tall tales during fleeting breaks, their laughter a defiant counterpoint to the whine of overtaxed engines. One crew, dubbed the Midnight Mechanics, became legends for hot-swapping axles under artillery fire, their camaraderie forged in the crucible of exhaustion and urgency. French civilians, peeking from shuttered windows, gazed in awe at this spectacle of resourcefulness, trucks morphing into workshops, roads birthing from ruins overnight. To them, it evoked the ingenuity of their own resistance fighters, but amplified by American scale, villagers often lent hands, offering tools or guiding detours, their faces alight with a mix of wonder and gratitude as they witnessed abundance, reclaiming their scarred landscape. This stood in glaring contrast to German rigidity, where every repair required paperwork and hierarchy, stalling operations for days. The Wehrmacht's observers, hidden in tree lines, scribbled notes of incredulity. How could such disorder yield order? The Americans built faster than Germans could destroy. Their improvisations, a cultural flex of democratic flexibility over authoritarian precision, proving that in the fog of war, bending rules wasn't weakness. It was the path to victory. Part 8. The Human Cost and Triumph. The Red Ball Express exacted a brutal toll on its drivers, men who pushed beyond human limits in a grueling ballet of exhaustion and peril. With accidents claiming 300 lives over the operation's span trucks colliding in fog, overturning on cratered roads, or erupting in flames from overheated engines. These soldiers operated for 72 straight hours, their visions blurring from sleep deprivation and Benzedrine stimulants, hallucinating shadows on the highway, yet pressing on with a morale that soared inexplicably high. Mostly African American, denied equal rights in their own country, and barred from combat roles, they grasped the historic weight of their mission. Every ton delivered was a blow against Hitler's racial doctrines, proving superiority through sweat and skill rather than ideology. Captured German officers, like Oberst Hans von Luck, confessed in interrogations, "We knew we'd lost when we understood your supply system. You've industrialized warfare beyond our comprehension." The drivers' resilience shattered not just enemy lines, but prejudices, their segregated units outperforming expectations and planting seeds for military integration. As General Eisenhower observed firsthand in September 1944, watching weary men unload crates and muttering to his aide, "These men are winning the war as surely as any infantry. We need to reconsider many things." Stories of individual heroism illuminated the human triumph amid the carnage, like Corporal John L. Houston, who drove 48 hours nonstop to deliver ammunition to the 2nd Armored Division at Cambrai, nodding off at the wheel 3 times, but revived by comrades to complete his run, his determination a quiet fire that saved lives on the front. Or Private Booker T. Washington, whose truck ignited from brake failure while carrying medical supplies, defying protocol, he steered the blazing vehicle 2 miles to a field hospital, leaping out as flames licked the cab, ensuring wounded soldiers from both sides received aid. These tales, multiplied thousands-fold, carried an emotional weight that resonated deeply. Drivers drawing strength from letters home or shared dreams of a post-war America where their sacrifices might forge equality. The French resistance, buoyed by the convoy's unyielding presence, saw morale surge 400% along the routes, fighters emboldened to sabotage German retreats. Their actions intertwined with the drivers' grit. Sharing rations with civilians despite orders, these men bridged worlds, their generosity a stark rebuke to occupation's cruelty, fostering alliances that amplified the Allied push. In this crucible of cost and courage, the Red Ball's triumph wasn't just logistical, it was profoundly human, a testament to endurance that challenged racism, inspired allies, and etched unsung heroes into the annals of victory. Part 9. The Tipping Point, September 1944. In early September 1944, the Red Ball Express hit its stride, propelling Patton's Third Army into feats that pulverized German defenses and redefined armored warfare's limits. On September 1, the 4th Armored Division surged 35 miles by noon, paused briefly for resupply, only to find Red Ball trucks already waiting with brimming fuel and ammunition, enabling another 32-mile push. That afternoon, a staggering 67-mile single-day advance that obliterated Wehrmacht planning, which had banked on maximum 30-mile daily gains. German doctrine crumbled under this onslaught. Oberst Heinz Guderian, reviewing reports in East Prussia, dismissed them as fabrications. No armored force can advance 60 miles daily for a week. Mechanical failures alone prevent it. Yet intercepted American radio traffic, broadcast openly without codes, confirmed the impossible, radiating supreme confidence and outpacing German reactions. By September 5, comprehensive intelligence dossiers on the Red Ball forced a catastrophic revision of Wehrmacht assumptions, with daily tonnage hitting peaks that sustained divisions averaging 40 to 60 miles of advance. Supplementing the trucks, C-47 transports airlifted critical supplies, delivering 2,700 tons on September 16 alone via 900 flights, dwarfing the Luftwaffe's 300-ton daily maximum to Stalingrad. As routes stretched beyond 700 miles, the operation faced strain, convoy intervals widening and speeds dipping, but American adaptability shone. Within 72 hours, intermediate transfer points halved runs to 350 miles, driver rotations were implemented, forward bases doubled vehicles, and deliveries actually surged. This tipping point delivered a psychological sledgehammer to German commanders, their bunkers echoing with despair as reports painted an inexorable Allied tide. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, poring over maps in his western headquarters, summoned his staff after digesting the intelligence. "We face something beyond military solution. The Americans have made distance irrelevant." The blow wasn't just strategic, it gnawed at their core beliefs and tactical superiority, leaving officers like von Rundstedt haunted by visions of endless convoys that mocked their resource-starved reality. French civilians, transformed from passive observers to active allies, played a pivotal role in this crescendo. Their aid weaving into the operation's fabric, villagers cleared debris from roads, guided detours around sabotage, and even formed human chains to unload crates at stops, their enthusiasm fueled by the convoy's generosity and the palpable scent of liberation. Resistance activity exploded 400% along the routes, with locals sabotaging German retreats and providing intelligence that smoothed the Red Ball's path. Their collaboration a grassroots symphony of hope that amplified American momentum. Ultimately, this peak performance shortened the war by months, averting winter stalemates and saving countless lives. as the operation's unyielding flow drowned German hopes in a deluge of supplies, proving logistics as the unseen architect of victory. Part 10. Legacy of the Red Ball Express. By the 16th of November, 1944, with railheads advancing and supply lines stabilizing, the Red Ball Express was officially discontinued after 82 days of relentless operation, having delivered 412,193 tons of supplies over 122 million ton miles, employing an average of 5,958 trucks, peaking at 7,000, and involving 23,000 drivers who consumed 57 million gallons of fuel, wore out 180,000 tires, and destroyed over 5,000 vehicles. This juggernaut, meant to last just 10 days, had shortened the war by an estimated 6 months, enabling the capture of 400,000 German soldiers and the liberation of France, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Field Marshal Walter Model reflected in his final report, "We were not defeated by American tanks or planes primarily. We were defeated by American trucks." The transition to rail was itself a feat. American engineers reconstructed 1,000 miles of destroyed French tracks faster than Germans had sabotaged them, often using captured equipment. German commanders, now defending their borders, admitted their calculations had erred by a factor of 10, underestimating American capacity based on European precedents. Beyond the battlefield, the operation sparked a racial reckoning in the U.S. military. Eisenhower, witnessing the drivers' exhaustion in September, confided to his aide, "These men are winning the war. We need to reconsider many things," fueling pressures that led to desegregation 3 years later. The predominance of African American drivers dismantled Nazi racial theories, their superior performance a silent victory over prejudice. Reflecting on their legacy, the drivers carried a profound pride home. Their stories of endurance becoming family lore, men like those who drove through blizzards, wrapping tire chains in negative 10 degrees Celsius while German doctrine declared wheeled transport impossible, their resolve a beacon of what opportunity could yield. This pride echoed in post-war America, where Red Ball veterans founded trucking empires like Yellow Freight and Roadway, applying military lessons to civilian logistics, volume over efficiency, speed over perfection, revolutionizing interstate highways and global supply chains. The operation's influence rippled worldwide, reshaping military doctrine. Volume overcomes inefficiency, redundancy trumps vulnerability, as General Franz Halder noted in 1950. The Red Ball Express proved logistics determined strategy. A poignant anecdote captures its essence. A nameless German officer, standing roadside in Belgium amid the endless convoy, turned to his American captors with weary resignation. "We prepared for your tanks, your planes, your ships. We never prepared for your trucks. How do you defeat an enemy with more trucks than you have soldiers?" His words, shared at the 1994 D-Day stamp ceremony honoring the Red Ball, underscored the driver's triumph. Mostly black soldiers, segregated yet unbreakable, who delivered victory at 35 miles per hour, proving industrial democracy's might over totalitarian rigidity. Their legacy a roaring testament that in modern war, trucks conquer where tactics falter. Please press like and subscribe to the channel, or wait for my latest video.